he was coming into his maturation as the leader of the Southern Christians Leadership Conference. He had won the Nobel Prize. He had had campaigns that were both successful and unsuccessful. He had learnt a lot, as had the movement. So you are literally going into the phase whereby they were no longer green to what was going on. And you see that in how successful the campaign was. The Selma campaign went from January of 1965 to March of 1965, and by the August of that year, the law had changed. And I think that that's what makes this a compelling time to look at, because it was turbulent, people died, there was conflict, he bashed heads with Lyndon Johnson, and yet there was success at the end. It's sort of perfectly framed for a movie. Our job was to take what you know and have seen from the newsreels and to go beneath it, build on top of it and around it so that it gives it context. You know, if you watch footage of the Bloody Sunday, the Edmund Pettus Bridge attack on the protesters, it's all from far away because there's tear gas, and once the gas is there, you can see horses rushing in, you can hear screams, but you can't really see what's going on behind that terrible cloud. Well, what we do is we take you inside the cloud, and that's what we do with the campaign generally. We take you inside of what actually happened. One of the things I insisted upon is not using prosthetics. I was very keen for us to not get obsessed with looking exactly like him. I put on quite a bit of weight and did everything I could to, you know, get as close as I could to what he looked like. But I'm a true believer in the fact that in cinema, in theater, what you're speaking to as an actor is the other person's spirit. You're speaking into people's souls. And if I can find this man's spirit, if I can find his soul, if I can be truthful with the emotion, that's what's going to hit you as the audience. And all the other stuff kind of fades away because it's the essence of the human being ultimately that we engage with day to day anyway. And I think that it was his essence that motivated and moved people and inspired people to elicit change. Brilliant writing. Ava rewrote the speeches. We couldn't use Dr. King's actual speeches, and so she wrote them in the style of Dr. King. I became a student of how he sounded, his rhythms, how he sped up at points, slowed down at points, made sure he repeated things 3 times so that they absolutely hit home. And so you do all of that work, and but also the words, I believe in what he had to say, and I think if you're able to say them with conviction, that's what comes across as well. I had experienced Ava as a director for the first time when we did Middle of Nowhere together. I just fell in love with her as a director and as a person, really. She's an incredible human being, and there was I don't know, there was just a meeting of minds between director and actor that I've rarely had with other directors, and so I very selfishly, to be perfectly honest, when we were directorless on this, campaigned quite hard for it to be her, because I really knew that she would be the one to be able to lead me to where I eventually think I got. I learnt more about self-sacrifice and how potent a force that is. You know, this man put himself on the line, as did all of these people. That's what I love about the film. It wasn't just about Dr. King, it was about the movement as well. And they were very young. And, you know, when you think about being young these days, it's sort of more synonymous with selfishness. You know, they were selfless. They really, really cared less about themselves than they did about the greater good of humanity. And that was something I came to admire even more having done this and try to now incorporate into my life even more. Incredible, really, because when you're making movies, a lot of the time what you're spending a lot of energy doing is blocking out the movie-making process, trying to ignore the camera, trying to ignore the crew, trying to ignore the lights. But, you know, when you're shooting on the Edmund Pettus Bridge, where these events actually happened with some of the people who actually were on the march, which was the case, it goes from doing to being. You're no longer acting, you are reacting. And I think that that is acting in its purest form. And so it was both a gift and also disquieting because you just think, wow, once they call cut, I get to walk away. These people couldn't walk away. Their lives were in genuine danger. Could I have done this? You know, it made me question that a lot. That was one of the pleasures of doing this. Obviously a great actor who I've, you know, seen give several great performances, and to go toe-to-toe with him, not just as actors, but these characters, you know, Johnson and King. I mean, you know, that in and of itself felt quite titanic. And so, you know, it also really helped me, those scenes, because part of my job was to juxtapose the side of King that had a political mind and the side of King that was just a human being. And the human side only works if the political side works. That's how you see the full gamut. And so I was really, really glad to be doing those scenes with Tom.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey You Guys, huh?
Hey You Guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yes.
Nice.
Hey